Hello, welcome to another edition of Issues with Jide. Here we talk about actions and inactions of those who shape our political and national landscape and how these impact us positively or otherwise. I'm Ibrahim Shita. Today on the show, Peter Obi Suspends presidential campaign visits IDP camp in Benue State as APC launches Tinubu's Manifesto. And later on the show, migration of Nigerian doctors abroad reaches alarming level. In the course of the program, we'll take your questions. But first, subscribe to our YouTube channel and drop your questions in the comments section. I have joining me via Zoom the maestro himself, Babajide Kolade-Otitoju. It's good to see you, and I wish Man United the best this time round.
Yes, but let's not put that one in our mind so that it doesn't distract us. Because if you're asking me questions and I'm using one eye to look at the TV, I'm sure you won't enjoy it. So don't distract me with anything Man United. When we win the match, then let us talk.
All right, then let's get down into the show and see. Starting first with the presidential campaign. You know, after paying a courtesy visit on the affected victims of flooding in Benue State, the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Peter Obi, suspended his campaigns and advised other presidential candidates to follow suit. But then the presidential candidate of the APC, Bola Tinubu, unveiled an 80-page campaign action plan tagged Renewed Hope 2023. How are you reading this politics of things?
Yes, I think Peter Obi has done a very good thing by suspending his campaign and physically visiting the victims of flooding. He said he was suspending his campaign in honor of the victims of flooding in our country. And he did not stop at that. He took a ride to Benue State, and he was seen in a canoe, you know, taking a ride to go and visit the victims of flooding. And this shows the humane side of the Labour Party presidential candidate, and I'm sure that a good number of people will have received his presidential ambition warmly as a result of the gesture. People want to see our leaders show that they really mean well for the people, that they care for the people. And when a presidential candidate does this, it's a big statement. I've said it before that Peter Obi undoubtedly has energized this campaign. In the past, it used to be a two-pronged race, but we now know that it is a three-pronged race, if not a four-pronged race. That is, if we bring in the presidential candidate of the NMPP. But Peter Obi has energized the campaign by the way it's been moving around our country and the way it's trying to sell his candidature to Nigerians. No doubt about it, going to Benue after announcing on Wednesday that he was suspending his campaign in honor of the victims of flooding. It's a step in the right direction. Remember, the UNICEF announced that more than 600 Nigerians have died as a result of this flooding. It's a much bigger problem than is being reported in the national dailies and by television stations. It takes going to the troubled areas to really feel the pain of the people, and Obi's advisors did the right thing by getting him to not just suspend his his campaign, but to be physically present to see how the people are doing as a result of this unfortunate natural disaster. So, and added to that, the long-awaited inauguration of the All Progressive Congress presidential candidates presidential campaign council took place yesterday after such a long delay. You know, there has been so much back and forth over the list of the members of the Presidential Campaign Council. The list was rejected. The secretary of the campaign council was attacked. Governors got very angry. Now, that list has been expanded from 422 persons to more than 600 persons. And once the party signed off on that list, the campaign council was inaugurated officially by President Muhammadu Buhari. And significantly, the president said he was going to take charge of the campaign, that will be physically involved in campaigning for Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. As far as is concerned, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu is the best man for the job. He described him as a Democrat and as a person who has the can-do spirit. He is confident that Asiwaju can raise a team that will change the fortunes of our country for the better. So that the president, who had earlier been accused by some people of not fully committed to Asiwaju's presidential ambition, to speak in that manner, to commit himself to lead the campaign, I think is very significant. It's one way of rallying the remainder of the APC members behind the candidature of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. So the campaign council is a big one, and the candidate also came up with his 80-page action plan titled Renewed Hope 2023, Action Plan for a Better Nigeria. And of course, he said he will focus on national security, because I can say without a shadow of it that the security in our country. So the week has been somewhat busy, and I can only say that even the coming days will be much more interesting. And Obi, the candidate of the Labour Party, has shown again that he is a candidate to watch. But of course, you can see that Tinubu organized a massive work today, massive work, which sent a direct message that he, even at his age, is capable of mobilizing people and mobilizing them effectively for the purpose of the impending election. So the crowd that we saw today in Lagos, in my view, is unprecedented. So it just makes for a very interesting electioneering period in the final analysis.
Yeah. So I just before we move on with the suspension of campaign, the campaigns rather, presidential campaign, I saw on Twitter some people who are mainly Obi supporters. They were actually saying over time they've always been obedient. So yesterday, seeing some comments on the social media, Twitter for example, saying, looking at what Asiwaju unveiled yesterday of his manifesto, that they are entirely convinced that the man has got some stuff or stuffs to, offer Nigerians, and by so doing, some of them are saying that they are defecting or they are renouncing their ardent support for the presidential candidates of the Labour Party, while others who said they will never change their belief in Peter Obi. So what do you think this has done to the mindset of a lot of people who felt maybe Asiwaju didn't have much to offer based on what they've been saying so far?
Well, anyone who knows Asiwaju very well will not say at this point that he has nothing to offer. Asiwaju's great strength is in raising men and women of substance. And we've seen how the people that he raised in Lagos have been doing well, even at the national level. Wherever they've been put to use, they've done very well. And there are still a lot of people that have not had the privilege of serving at the national level that Asiwaju produced while he was governor in Lagos. One strength that he has is his ability to locate talents and put those talents to use. I've said it before that the Nigerian president does not necessarily have to be brilliant. All that is necessary is for him to surround himself with the right people, because he cannot do all the work by himself. He has to learn to delegate. You cannot micromanage a country like Nigeria, but you need effective people in critical sectors, to man critical sectors in critical positions to be able to deliver the goods. In a cabinet, for example, you could find 4 or 5 people who are very good, who are doing well. Asiwaju will be able to, given the bits that I know about him, will be able to find the right people in our country who can man the critical sectors of our country and who will deliver the goods, who will make a difference. We need game-changing leaders. And Asiwaju has shown that he can produce game-changing leaders. So if he gets the chance, if Nigerians give him the chance, I'm confident that since he was able to do that in Lagos, he will be able to replicate it at national level. We've seen people who are governors become president of America, as big as America is. America is bigger than West Africa. Yet, somebody who was governor of Texas became governor and became president of America. You know? So you can even be senator of a constituency in the US and become a good president of the US. It has to do with how you use the opportunity at your disposal. So for those who are saying that it's not got much to offer, well, I disagree. I disagree, because he has not had the chance to be president. So when he gets the chance to be president, we will be able to assess him. But I can say that given what he did in Lagos and the templates that he laid down in Lagos that is still being used and guaranteeing progress, one can say that Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu will make a good Nigerian president.
Yeah, BK, let me quickly take this comment before I ask my second question. I mean, third, to be precise. Fabian Akeze says, we have arrived at the point in the campaign when the Labour Party and Peter Obi supporters will be quiet because the big boys with structure have arrived. Fabian Akeze says here, okay, no, I've taken his comments. But let me ask my question while I also ferret across the comments here too. Should the question now, talking about suspension of campaign, should the question be about suspension of presidential campaigns or supporting the affected with relief items and other tangibles? What do you consider more empathetic?
I think both. I'd rather go for both. Suspend the presidential campaign, no matter how short. That's a significant step. Suspend it. If you had engagements planned. If we are planning to address some people in Lagos, to reach out to them, to support you, you leave that. You go to Bayelsa, one of the states worst affected. In Bayelsa, the flood has even exhumed corpses, you know, apart from destroying people's farmlands. So I'll go for the two. Suspend the campaign, take some of that time to visit victims of flooding, and then provide as much support as I can, then resume the campaign. It's just a significant and symbolic step. It doesn't have to be a long suspension, but it's symbolic. The message, it gets the message across. Remember, Asiwaju even canceled his birthday celebration to go and commiserate with Governor El-Rufai when terrorists attacked and Abuja, Kaduna a train headed for Kaduna from Abuja. It was attacked and people were killed. Asiwaju said, we cannot be celebrating when fellow Nigerians are in pains. And he went there to visit them. That was the day that he secured El-Rufai's support. And El-Rufai guaranteed the support of delegates from Kaduna State. So these kind of steps are very strategic, they are very symbolic in politics.
Yeah. All right, let's change the tack now by looking at Nigerian Medical Association lamenting the mass emigration of Nigerian trained healthcare professionals. Phil, why do you think the health sector has been experiencing worsening job migration?
I think there are a number of reasons. Economic immigration is not a new thing. People who go for greener pastures. But you and I know that this kind of migration out of our country is a very serious one. It's troubling. It's really, really troubling. And it has great implications for child and family health. The advocacy in child and family health, Bill and Melinda Gates project in Nigeria, conducted some research, and I found some of the data that they came up with really, really troubling. And I'm hoping as a patriotic Nigerian that we can do something about this. A situation in which 8 out of 10 doctors graduating from medical college in our country believe that they must leave the country. It's troubling. 8 out of 10. That's effectively more than 80% of the doctors that we are training in our country coming out of medical college. What crosses their mind is how to leave the country to go and work elsewhere. So they've been living for the UK, the US, the UAE, Australia, and other countries. And the number has been rising. Between 2016 and 2018, Nigeria lost 9,000 medical doctors to the UK, Canada, and the US. Yet there are other countries that these doctors go to that are not even captured. We don't have enough medical schools to continue to churn out doctors at the rates at which they are living. All the medical colleges in Nigeria, including the private ones, graduate between 3,000 to 3,500 doctors every year. But with thousands of them emigrating to foreign lands, if we do not address this problem, it will have serious implications for child and family health. And we really do not want to see that. It's been going up like that for some time. Nigeria is out of the 80,000 registered doctors with licenses to practice in Nigeria, only 40,000 were practicing. Now, the NMA is telling us that only 24,000 nurses, doctors are practicing in our country. About 11,000 nurses and midwives left Nigeria for developed countries in the last 3 years alone. Ibrahim, 11,000 nurses and midwives left Nigeria in the last 3 years alone. So the number of Nigerian trained nurses increased by 68.4% from 2,790 in March 2017 to 7.256 in March 2022. So there is a 68.4% rise in the number of nurses trained in our country who have left for greener pasture. Today, there are more than 20,000 Nigerian doctors practicing in the UK, in the USA. And there's no major hospital in the US without a Nigerian trained doctor working there. So it also has to do with remuneration. The base salary that the Nigerian doctor coming into the UK, the base salary that he gets paid is £4,000. You and I know that it is about 880 naira to £1.
To £1.
Even their exchange rate now, 880. And someone goes to the UK, he gets paid £4,000 a month. How do we convince such people to remain in their country? It's really troubling. It's really troubling.
Well,
so
BK, Nigeria is not the only
country. And the ones who are even staying, the ones who are in Nigeria, they are not prepared to stay in the hinterland.
Yeah.
Every doctor wants to practice in the tertiary health institutions. And the tertiary health institutions are supposed to be centers of excellence, centers of research, and places where other cases that can be handled at primary and secondary level should be transferred to. I'm talking about like the National Hospital and specialist hospitals. This is where virtually every doctor wants to serve. So in our rural areas, people are suffering. Access to Medicare is reduced drastically because there are not enough public health centers in those rural areas. That is why a lot of our people are dying due to diseases that are preventable. So if we continue to have a situation in which doctors leave our country at the rate that they are leaving our country, then we'll be in trouble, because it is about 10,000 doctors, 10,000 Nigerians to one doctor, which is troubling. The ratio that the World Health Organization recommends is way lower than that. It should be at least 1,000 doctors to a patient. I mean, to one. I mean, 1,000. How do I describe it? It is supposed to be 1,000 based on the population, calculating now based on our population.
Right.
it should be 1 doctor to 1,000 persons.
Yeah.
You know, you look at the Indians. The Indians have been able to, they are able to produce about 50,000 doctors every year from more than 300 medical colleges.
Yeah.
So they've been able to meet that World Health Organization threshold. For us, it is 1 doctor to 10,000 patients. That is looking at our. So the alarm bells are there. We've just got to do something. How do we stop these doctors from leaving our country? Remember the examination that was held in Abuja, that large crowd of doctors. You know, some of the doctors saw even the lecturers, the professors that trained them in the university. Some of them sat for the same exam with those professors. You can imagine. So there has to be enough opportunities here for them to stay, enough opportunities for growth. They should be well remunerated. Otherwise, this thing will get worse, and we will not have enough qualified medical professionals to take care of our people. All of those PHCs, public health centers that you see, they are supposed to be doctors heading them, supported by nurses and ancillary nurses. But what we have is a situation in which nurses are made to head such PHCs. They were not designed like that. They were designed with a doctor sitting at the top. You know? So we have all kinds of problems, and we just need to find a way to arrest these trips. We can't stop people from traveling abroad. In fact, in the UK, Nigeria is third amongst nationals of other countries practicing in the UK. We are third behind India and Pakistan. But the point that we are making is the Indians have a lot more doctors in their country because they produce more than 50,000 doctors every year from their medical colleges. We are only able to produce about 3,000 to 3,500. So at the rate that people are living, if about 9,000 can live within 2-3 years, you can see that we cannot produce those doctors, at the rate. It will get to a point that we will not be able to produce doctors at the rate at which they are living our country.
PK, just like you said, Nigeria is not the only country affected by this brain drain. Pakistan, India, among others. So with the concept of Japa that is now very much talked about in Nigeria, what would you advocate that those in authority put in place to mitigate the hunt for greener pastures?
Yes, the enabling environment has to be created. You know, pay the doctors. As we are speaking now, the House of Rep Speaker is trying to stop another strike by resident doctors. They ask for training allowance, you will not want to give them training allowance. They ask for hazard allowance, you are paying them peanuts. The same hazard allowance that was being paid them in the early 80s. They had to go on a nationwide strike before the hazard allowance was increased. The environment has to be made conducive for them to want to practice here. A lot of them will remain here if you pay them good wages and you create opportunities even for training, for them to train abroad, to get abreast with latest trends. If we provide the right equipment at all the 3 tiers of the health sector, talking about the primary, secondary, and tertiary health institutions, provide the equipment, which are the tools that they need to work with. Increase their pay. We've got to pay doctors well because these are people who save lives. So you cannot pay some people peanuts because people's lives are in their hands. You know? So a lot of them want to develop, they want to have they want to be abreast with latest trends. So if opportunities for training abroad are introduced, I'm sure a good number of them will stay. Then in the hinterland, you also need to give incentives to doctors so that they can stay in the rural areas and work for our people. Because I'm not just concerned about the fact that they are going abroad. I'm also concerned about the fact that in the rural areas, we do not have doctors, enough doctors to take good care of our people. We can't stop people living, but when they are living at the rates at which they are living, then we should be worried. In 2015, 233 Nigerian doctors moved to the UK. In 2016, it rose to 279. In 2017, the figure was 475. In 2018, the figure rose to 852, Ibrahim. In 2019, it jumped to 1,347. Yeah. So within a space of just 4 years, 3 years, it moved from 233 going to UK to 852. Wow. Then in 2019, it went to 1,347. In 2020, despite the COVID, 833 Nigerian doctors moved to the UK. And by 2021, 932 moved to the UK. I can tell you that for 2022, for 2021, if 2021 it was 932, I can tell you that for 2022, it will be a lot higher. Because as at March this year, 200 Nigerian trained doctors, March, in 1 month alone, 1 month, 200 Nigerian trained doctors were licensed in the US, in the UK. That's just talking about UK. They are going to other places. So by the time all of the figures are put together, it's really, really troubling. A government that is forward-looking has to address the problem, has to find a way to arrest this drift. We can't just fold our hands and say, economic migration is a normal thing. Even Americans are going to China to work. Americans are learning Chinese language, they are going to China to work. The rate at which they are living our country, compared to the rate at which we are producing them, is the reason that I think that government has to do something drastically.
Yeah, because
you can't have like a quarter.
Right. I want to quickly chip in this question by Alabi Idon. It says, why do we have wide wage discrepancy among civil servants in Nigeria, which seriously discriminates against medical doctors and professors in Nigeria? Because is there any remedy?
For what?
Discrepancy among or between civil servants in Nigeria, which seriously discriminates against medical doctors and professors.
Yes, I know that is a problem. It has to be addressed. Some doctors trained outside Nigeria get discriminated against, especially at the level of the examination that they do here to get certification. I think the health minister and other stakeholders need to look at that problem and find a way to solve it. I've had this complaint a number of times, and I know that if it is not a significant problem, they won't be complaining about it.
Bola says, to become a doctor or nurse in Nigeria is very cheap in training compared to other countries. It's a pity other countries are reaping in that process. Would you like to speak to that?
Yes, it's true. And that is why it's painful. It's a lot cheaper to produce doctors here, because you and I know that education especially in public universities, is still very, very cheap. Public universities, in terms of the fees that they take, it's still very cheap, you know, but the quality of those doctors produced here is not in doubt, because they go out and they excel. They sit for entry examinations in those places, and they do well, and they are licensed. If Nigerian doctors trained here were not good enough, they won't be, the GMC in the UK won't be licensing them as they are doing. As I said, if 200 doctors can be licensed in 1 month in the UK, that should tell you that these doctors are well sought after, and nurses and midwives too.
Well, let me take 1 or 2 more questions before. I think we're actually out of time. Fabian Akeze is saying, I blame the NMA also for this crisis because their members encouraged the Nigerian doctors to run away because most of them have moved abroad, and tell fellow doctors to leave at the first opportunity.
Well, emigrating abroad is a decision that a man takes by himself. I don't see how anybody can convince me, for example, to go abroad if I do not think that it makes sense for me to travel abroad. So the environment is just not conducive for these guys. And you and I know that the wages, the cost of living and all that, and the equipment available to work with, when you compare Nigeria and the UK, people want to reach the top of their professions and be abreast with latest developments. So they just feel like going. But Nigeria has a lot to do.
Yeah.
You know, to even improve Medicare in our country and take good care of the welfare of doctors, so that those doctors can feel like staying here. A situation in which almost every year resident doctors, NMA go on strike. It's not a palatable one.
Yeah. Well,
it's not a palatable one. It shows that there are still many things that government needs to do that they are not doing. And as long as those issues remain, many of these doctors won't feel like staying here.
Yeah, well, Jide actually agrees with you by saying house rent alone, they chop doctors' money. With a free standard quarters, many doctors won't see a reason to leave the country. Well, because of our time, that's our show for today's edition of Issues with Jide. Special thanks to you, Babajide Kolade-Otitoju, for those insightful analyses as always.
Thank you, Ibrahim. We'll do this again next week. God willing.
I'm not able to see what Man U is actually playing at the moment, but I'm sure you have an eye on it. But all we can do,
I'm not
the team here,
I'm not watching. I refuse to watch. I wanted to focus on this. You can see that I've been looking straight. I wasn't looking to my side. In fact, the television is not on.
Oh, okay.
So,
best of luck all the same. And thanks to you, to our audience, for joining us on every edition. You can see the program again anytime by subscribing to our YouTube channel, TVC News Nigeria. Click on the subscribe button to get the latest information. You can also follow us on our social media platforms, TVC News NG. I'm also at Ibrahim TVC News. On behalf of the rest of the team, I'm Ibrahim Shita. See you again next edition. Bye-bye now.